Does your keyboard thock? Well, these are the Thock keyboards by Endorfy. They've recently released 3 new sizes, adding 75% TKL and full-size layouts to the range, alongside the 60% model called the Thock Compact, which was released a little while ago. Let's find out if the Thocks thock.
Iron Wolf Pro. Tough, ready, scalable.
So as I mentioned just now, Endorfy have added 3 new sizes to their range of Thock wireless keyboards. They're all available on Amazon UK, but the pricing is a little bit all over the place. The full-sized model will set you back 110 quid, that's this one on my right, your left. The TKL Thock, which is in the middle, is 53 quid currently, but then the 75% layout is 74 quid. So the larger TKL model is actually cheaper than the 75% layout at the moment, but then again, all 3 of them are reasonably priced, I think, overall, but prices may fluctuate on Amazon UK due to boring stuff like Brexit and things like that. All 3 of the layout choices are very similar in design, as you can see. I will point out any key differences as we look at the keyboards in a bit more detail and go through all the different specs and features. I'll also give you a sound test of each board later on in the video. So looking at the design of the Thock keyboards then, black is definitely the theme throughout all 3 models. The overall look of the keyboards are all really similar, with the 75% and the full-size models featuring a metal dial in the upper right-hand corner, which can be used for changing volume levels and muting or unmuting audio. The bottom cases on all 3 models are plastic and all have an isometric triangular designed pattern embossed in them. They all also contain a small cutout section that holds the USB dongle for connecting wirelessly, which is held in place with a small magnet, and then there's also a keycap puller. It's a bit unusual seeing a keycap puller stored actually inside the bottom of a keyboard, but at least you're never going to lose it. There's a decent sized cutout for routing the USB cable out of the top of the board, either straight out of the middle at the top or then slightly off to the left or to the right. The feet on these boards have 2 levels of incline to adjust typing angles. The steeper feet are absolutely massive, and both sets of feet have rubber pads on the bottom that keep the boards in place on my desk really well, especially with them being quite lightweight, to be fair. The 75% model weighs 727 grams. The TKL tips the scales at 778 grams, and then the full-size model weighs 995 grams, so just shy of a kilogram. Flipping the boards back over to check out the top then, and I was really pleased to see that not everything is made out of plastic. The top case is made out of powder-coated aluminium, and it feels really nice to the touch. The boards have quite an angular design along the front edge, with some Endorfy branding just underneath the left control key area. I don't mind this branding at all. Keeping it black and quite minimal was a great choice by Endorfy in my opinion. It doesn't look too bad at all. The keycaps are double shot PBT as standard. They all come with double shot PBT keycaps from Endorfy Direct, and they all feature a unique Endorfy font for the legends, which if I'm honest, I'm not a fan of. I don't like the way some of the letters are broken up, like the D and the B keys. I'd have preferred a simpler, cleaner looking font if I'm honest. The models Endorfy sent out to me all have black keycaps, but you can pick up black and white pudding sets, which will let much more light shine through from the RGB LEDs. And speaking of that RGB, all of the models of the Thock wireless boards have fully customizable RGB, which we'll look at in a bit more detail later on in the video. A switch for changing connectivity mode can be found on the side of the upper right corner of the Thock series keyboards. It's made out of plastic, but it does feel pretty sturdy for a plastic button. There's a very small embossed Endorfy logo sitting just to the side of it. Overall, they look quite nice, nothing too tacky or garish. So then, I think the design of these keyboards is okay. They're pretty generic looking, but that's not entirely a bad thing in my opinion. The sharp angles do give them quite a gamery vibe, and I think this will split opinions a little bit. They're definitely not bad looking keyboards, but they're not the greatest I've seen either. They're just alright. Build quality is always going to be something to keep an eye on when you look at more budget friendly peripherals like these. After all, it's no use looking and sounding the part if it's just going to break in 6 months' time. And for the money, the build quality on offer from Endorfy in these Thock keyboards is good. They are surprisingly rigid considering the amount of plastic that's been used in the construction, in the bottom cases in particular. There's not much flex at all when trying to bend the boards, not like that's something that you're going to do day to day anyway. And pressing down on the top of the board does produce quite a lot of flex, but it's mainly caused by the feet, it's not the body itself flexing. The feet are the only area that let me down regarding the build quality, to be fair. Don't get me wrong, they work perfectly fine, but they feel cheap, and I don't like how snappy they are. They're quite rigid and snappy, especially considering they're made out of plastic. I don't like how they feel. On the flip side of that though, the included USB cable for charging feels really robust and well made. It's like polar opposites to the feet. It's thick, it's braided, and the connectors are well moulded and solid. I've got no concerns with the cable whatsoever. So overall, and taking the price into consideration, these keyboards are decent quality. If you prefer to use a board flat with the feet folded down, then I can't find any negatives. If you do raise them up, you will get a bit of flex in the feet when you press down, especially if you type quite hard. Moving on to look at the switches and the keycaps in a bit more detail then, and let's start with the keycaps, which are the same on all three models, apart from the larger layouts obviously housing a few more keys. As I mentioned earlier, Endorfy have used their own double-shot PBT keycaps, and they're alright in my opinion. They seem good quality, but I have noticed a few QC issues on the tops of some keys, like just a bit of burring or rough plastic on the edges. Sorting out issues like this would just take that quality up a notch or two. And once again, as I mentioned a second ago, I don't like the font used for the legends on these keycaps. The letters with cutouts just look out of place, and when I first saw them, I thought there'd been a fault in the production. Take the middle row for example. Going from right to left, it's normal letter, normal letter, normal letter, then bam, oh, there's a weird D with a bit missing out the top of it. It just doesn't look right. The switches in all three of these boards are Kailh box variants, and the boards all have hot swappable PCB designs. The box switches get their name from the box-shaped stem which the keycaps connect to, and they offer a bit more stability than regular or non-box switches, which leads to a little bit less wobble on the keycaps. 75% is available with black or red switches, which are both linear options. The TKL comes with the same black or red switches, so both linear options again. And then the full-sized Thock wireless comes pre-installed with either brown or red switches. The browns are tactile, and then the reds, as I mentioned, are linear. So there's no clicky option. If you like clicky switches, then you're a bit out of luck, and you'll have to install your own. And I feel Endorfy have missed a bit of a trick here and should offer a clicky switch as an option for people that want to pick one up from the get-go. I've got the 75% board with red switches, the TKL with black switches, and then the full-size one has got brown switches. Here's a run-through of how they all sound. So after that sound test, I'll say a word that I say quite a lot in my videos: decent. The stabilizers sound pretty good for boards at this price point. I wouldn't say that the Thocks thock, but they definitely don't sound too bad at all, and they're on the way to thocking. Let's move on to talk about the RGB then, and as is pretty much standard with every single gaming keyboard released nowadays, the Endorfy Thock wireless boards all have fully customizable RGB backlighting with north-facing LEDs sitting underneath each of the keycaps. The lighting on these keyboards is good. There are a lot of preset lighting modes to choose from in Endorfy software, or you can set custom colours for each individual key if you want to, if that's your thing. There is some patchiness in the legends on some keys, especially ones with more characters like print screen or scroll lock, those sort of thing, with a bit more detail, but that's common on a lot of boards. The secondary function legends are not lit up at all. I'd rather see that, and I think that looks good, and I'd rather see it than have them lit really poorly, to be honest. Overall, the RGB on these is good. I find it's decent. For a keyboard at this price point, I wasn't disappointed. So typing on these boards, especially the TKL layout that I've been using heavily for the past few weeks, has been a very, very nice experience. For a keyboard that costs less than 100 quid, it feels really, really premium. The feel is consistent across the whole board, and the spacebar feels and sounds great. Especially, again, I keep saying it, when you take the price of the board into consideration. The black switches feel smooth yet sturdy. There's almost no wobble in the keycaps at all due to the box switches that Endorfy went with. The switches are really good quality. And gaming has been great too. I smashed through the Diablo 4 beta and this board didn't skip a beat. And as I always like to do with my keyboard reviews, I scripted this whole video using this Thock TKL, and it was a satisfying experience from start to finish. All of the boards can be connected via 2.4 GHz wireless, Bluetooth, or via the USB cable. They should have you covered no matter what you want to connect to. The 2.4 GHz wireless connection, which I mostly use, has been great. I've not had any issues with it disconnecting. It's always connected as soon as I press a button to bring the board out of standby, and there's no delay when it does wake up from standby, something which has really annoyed me on keyboards that cost way, way more than this in the past. The battery life has been good. I cannot see an advertised battery life length anywhere, either on the information that was sent over to me by Endorfy or on their website, which is a bit strange, but if I've missed it, I'll stick it in the comments, but I couldn't see it. I found it a bit odd. And also, there was no way that I could see to check exactly how much battery life is left. There is an indicator LED on the board itself, but that's not exactly the most accurate way of checking when you're going to need to charge. I'd like to see an exact percentage remaining indicator added to the software, and the ability to show this in the taskbar would be nice too. Hopefully something that can be added with future software and firmware updates. And speaking of software, this is one area where the Thock keyboards disappointed and frustrated me a little bit. I could not get the Endorfy software to detect these keyboards unless they were connected with a USB cable. So if you want to quickly change like the RGB or remap a button, for example, you're going to need to dig out the USB cable and plug it in, kind of defeating the point of having a wireless keyboard. And when you do manage to get the software to detect the keyboard, it's an okay experience. It does the job of letting you configure the lighting and button mapping, including recording some macros. It does all that okay, but I can't help but feel that most of the effort by the developers went into making the software look nice rather than making the software as functionally pleasing and intuitively designed as they possibly could. Overall, as I mentioned, the software disappointed me, and I think it could do with a bit of an update and a bit of an improvement. So then, all in all, these keyboards are alright. They feel really nice and they feel really premium to type and game on, which I guess is the main thing. The software let me down, which was a shame as it was almost a home run. The design is okay. They do look a bit gamery, but it's nothing too over the top. The switches are great and some of the most stable and solid feeling that I've used. So if I strip back all of my kind of nitpicking, which I have to do as a reviewer of these sorts of products, the core typing experience is good and I've enjoyed using them. It's just been slightly tarred by silly little things that could have been done a bit better. The Thock keyboards are good. with a few updates to the software and a little bit better quality control, then the Thock line of keyboards could be great. That's the end of the video, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. Please leave a like down below if you did. Subscribe to Kit Guru to keep up with the latest PC gaming news and reviews. And if you want to check out our merch store, our Patreon page, or come and join our Discord server, then you'll find links to everything in the video's description. I've been Matt, guys. These have been the new Thock wireless keyboards from Endorfy. I'll speak to you in the next one. Look after yourselves. See you later.